Welcome back, learners, to our last session. Today we have Dr. Abhijit Behra. Over to you, sir.
Hello. Good evening, students. I am Abhijit Behra, at present from Sikkim. And in Sikkim, from a remote area, Ravangla of the district South Sikkim, the temperature here is around 14 degrees centigrades. And the longitude and latitude is 27.3 degree north and 88.3 degree east. So without wasting many more time, I would like to get into our topic and we can discuss from where we have left in our previous session. In the previous session, you have learned about the Mendel's laws of inheritance and the ways genes are transferred, test cross, and many more other things. But now, today, we'll be following little bit more, we'll be proceeding to our next thing. Today, we will be discussing the principles of inheritance. And I'm Abhijit Behra, as I have already told. The things we'll be covering today is polygenic inheritance and pleiotropy, sex determination, mutation and pedigree analysis, Mendelian disorders, and chromosomal disorders. Students, in our last session, or you might have heard about Mendel studies. Most of the Mendel studies, they describe traits that have distinctive alternatives. But in reality, do you find that all the traits, they have distinctive alternatives? Such as, consider your height. Do you think that a person can be tall and a person can be short? There is nothing in middle. So you people fill up forms. So when you fill up form, there is a column maybe of writing your height. So when you write your height, do you just write tall or short? No, right? There is a whole range of possible heights. So such kind of traits are generally controlled by 3 or more genes. And these are called polygenic traits. And we'll be discussing a classic example of polygenic inheritance today. Beside involvement of multiple genes, polygenic inheritance also takes in account, obviously, some influence of environment. But we won't be discussing that into detail today. Today, we'll be discussing about the examples of polygenic inheritance and how it happens. Let's see. This is inheritance of human skin color. When we are discussing a polygenic trait, you should remember a phenotype reflects the contribution of each allele. That is, the effect of each allele is additive. Now you may or may not understand. So I'll just stop the screen sharing and I'll explain you a little bit in the board. Yes. So now we'll be seeing that how the inheritance of these genes takes place in case of humans. Yes, I hope it is visible. Now, the skin color of humans, suppose they are controlled by 3 genes, A, B, and C. Now, A and B and C, let us say that these are the responsible for dark skin. They are the dominant ones. Now, then the recessive ones, A, B, and C, are supposed to be responsible for the lighter skin. Now, what will happen if we have all dominant? Suppose.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Make the font a little bit bigger, sir.
Okay, I'll do that. Suppose an individual has a genotype AA, BB, and CC. It is obviously, we can understand that all these genes, as the capital, they are responsible for dark skin color. So this individual who is having all dominant genes will be having the darkest skin color. Now, what about the lightest skin color? Suppose an individual is having AA, BB, and CC, all small. This is going to have the small, lightest skin color. So each type of allele, each allele actually will determine the darkness or lightness of the skin of an individual. Now, what if three are dominant and three are recessive, like this? In this condition, it is supposed to have, they are supposed to show an intermediate skin color. So this is all about the polygenic inheritance. In polygenic inheritance, as I have already told, that the characters are controlled by more than one genes. That's why the name polygenic. More than one genes are involved. Actually, more than three genes are involved. Next one is the pleiotropy. This is little different. Here we were seeing that a single trait was controlled by three or more genes. But in pleiotropy, that is little different. There we can see that a single gene can affect more than one phenotype. Now, how is it possible? Actually, what we call such genes are known as pleiotropic genes. Now, what is the mechanism? In most of these cases, actually, these genes, they affect metabolic pathways which contribute towards different phenotypes. That means the genes are going to affect the metabolic pathway. Those metabolic pathway may be responsible for more than one phenotype. That means if that metabolic pathway is altered, then the phenotypes will be altered. This metabolic pathway is affected, all the phenotypes will be affected. And classic example of this is phenylketonuria. We also have phenylketonuria in another, after some time in another topic, but we won't be discussing there. We will complete it here itself. In phenylketonuria, there is a mutation in a gene that codes for an enzyme, that the enzyme is phenylalanine hydroxylase. The function of the phenylalanine hydroxylase is very essential for the breakdown of phenylalanine into tyrosine. If there is no breakdown of phenylalanine into tyrosine, then it is going to be deposited in, and when it gets deposited in our brains, it may cause to mental retardation. Okay, then you will say, sir, only one phenotype is affected, that is the mental retardation. But no, along with this, there is reduction of hair, skin pigmentation. So we can see that one enzyme was affected, but it is having effect in more than one phenotypes. So this is known as pleiotropy. So once we are done, the portion was left in the previous session. Once we are done with this polygenic inheritance and pleiotropy, let's proceed towards sex determination. Let us know how it happens. Now, actually, the sex determination, this has puzzled the scientists for long. All genetics, they were thinking that how the sex determination is taking place. What is sex determination? Obviously, that how the sex of a individual, that is, it is going to be a male or it is going to be a female, is determined. Now, if you go about the history of this, the initial clue can be traced back to some experiments. Those were carried out on insects. Henking in 1891, he could trace a specific nuclear structure, a structure in the nucleus, and all through the spermatogenesis. That means during spermatogenesis, when he was observing the nucleus, he found that there is a small structure, and that structure is present in 50% of sperms, and 50% of sperms did not receive it. He named it X body because he did not know what it exactly is, and he could not explain what was the significance of that X body. Further experiments showed that the X body was in fact nothing but a chromosome, and hence the name was given X chromosome. Now, it is observed in large number of insects that the mechanism of sex determination is exotype. What is exotype? Actually, you can see the exotype written there in your book, but I would like to say it XX and exotype. Why? We'll discuss. Let us call it XS and exotype. What happens here? The females, they are going to produce only one type of gamete. That means they will have only X chromosome. That is, this one is the female. Fine. So what kind of gametes they are going to produce? Two types or one type. Only one type, because they are homozygous for X chromosome. So they are going to produce X and X. Fine. What about the male ones? The males will produce two type of sperms. One sperm will have the X chromosome in it. The another sperm will not have anything. O is not a chromosome. It is just saying that it is not having any chromosome. So what will happen? We can see two types of sperms are produced. 50% of them may have X chromosome and 50% of them will not have any chromosome. What about females? Females are producing eggs which are having X chromosome. Each one of them is having X chromosome. Let's see what will happen if the cross is taking place. Suppose this X chromosome of the egg of female carrying X chromosome is fusing with the sperm which is carrying X chromosome, then it is resulting in the formation of X and X. Obviously, we know this will become a female. What if an egg carrying X chromosome is fusing with an sperm which is carrying no X chromosome? Now, what if there is no chromosome? Do you think this gamete is necessary? No chromosome? No. There cannot be a gamete which is having no chromosome at all here. Then what is there? Autosomes are present. Here we are only discussing about the sex chromosomes. So I have not written the autosomes. So here the gamete will have only X and nothing, no other chromosome. In this case, it will be resulting in the formation of a male. This kind of sex determination is seen in case of grasshoppers also. So what is this type? X and exotype. Exotype, the two kinds of gametes are produced by the males, in which half of them may have X chromosome, another one is not going to have X chromosome. Now, due to the involvement, I can show you a structure that is there. You can see here how the XX and exotype is of sex determination is taking place. Here you can observe what is AA. AA is nothing. It is the autosomes, and XX, that is the sex chromosomes that is present in the female. The male is having autosomes, obviously, and it is having one X chromosome and another one is not present. So again, the cross is shown here. Females can produce only one type of gamete that will have autosomes plus X, and males can produce two type of gametes, autosomes plus X and autosomes plus nothing. So when progeny is receiving autosomes plus XX, that means egg is fertilized by a sperm carrying X chromosome, then the result will be female. When the egg is fertilized by a sperm which is not carrying X chromosome, then the result will be male. Now, due to the involvement of sex X chromosomes in sex determination, we call it as sex chromosomes. Sex chromosomes are also called as allosomes, heterosomes. Autosomal characters are controlled by autosomes, and actually the two pair of homologous chromosomes in autosomes are of same size. But in case of sex chromosomes, these sex chromosomes may be of same size, may not be of same size. We will be going into a detail of X and Y type, XY type. Let's see what happens. In XX, XY type, you can see the females, they are having two chromosomes, both are same, X and X. And the males are having two different type of, they can produce two different type of gametes because they have two chromosomes, X and Y. So what happens when a egg is fertilized by a sperm carrying X chromosome, then it results in a female. But when a sperm carrying Y chromosome fertilizes an egg, it results in the production of a male individual. Now, the thing is where this kind of sex determination is seen, where XX exotype we have seen, it was present in few insects. XS-XY type is also seen in some kinds of insects, but it is also seen in human beings. Both, in this case, both male and female, they have the same number of chromosomes. Let me tell you one more thing. So what I was showing you, that in that case, in case of insects in which XX exotype was observed, suppose XX and exotype. Now this one is having autosomes. This one is also having autosomes. Both are having autosomes, but here autosomes plus two chromosomes. But here autosomes plus one chromosome. That means the males are generally having one chromosome less than the females because one of the sex chromosome is absent. But in case of XX XY type, what is the difference? Let's see. XX XY type. Here we can see both are having autosomes and both are having sex chromosomes that are 2 in number. They may be different in case of males, but here the male and the female and the male, both they are having same number of chromosomes. So we can see that there are two types of sex determination, XX exotype and XX XY type. But in both these cases, we can observe one thing, that different types of gametes are produced only by the males. How? See, let us see the two conditions, what were there. In exotype, the males, they produce two types of gamete, either having, it may have X chromosome or it may not have X chromosome. Nothing was present. In XX, XY type, we can see the gametes produced by the male can have either X chromosome or they can have Y chromosome. So what do we observe here? That the different type of gametes are produced only by the males. These were males. In both the conditions, XX exotype and XX XY type, the females were producing only XX. That means there is no difference in the gametes they produce. Both are having same chromosomes. The different kinds of chromosomes were produced by the males only. Such kind of sex determination is known as male heterogamy. That means male is going to produce two different types of gametes. That comes from the word hetero. Hetero is different. Two different kinds of gametes are produced by the males. So it is known as male heterogamy. So does the opposite exist? That means female heterogamy? Yes, it exists. Female heterogamy is mostly seen in case of birds. In case of birds, the females are going to produce two different kinds of gametes. But again, if we say that the females are going to produce Y type of gamete, in case of birds, there may be a confusion. That is the reason what we have done to have a distinction with the mechanism of sex determination that we have just described. We have to differentiate this one. So the sex chromosomes in female birds, they are designated as Z and W. That means in birds, females, they are going to produce two different kind of gametes. Just as in human beings, male were producing. Here we are designating it as ZW, and males are going to produce only one type of gamete. Both will have Z chromosome in it. Female will have produced two type of gametes, that means two type of eggs. Half of it or some of it will have Z in it and some of it will have W in it. So here we can see that the females are producing two different type of gametes. That's why we call it as female heterogamy. So I hope you got this. Now we'll be discussing a little bit more again about the sex determination in human beings. We have already discussed that the sex determination in human beings is XX, XY type. So let us write the females, they are having chromosomes XX. The males, they will have XY. Now this is producing only one type of gamete. Let the gametes separate. X, X. This is producing two type of gametes. Half of them may carry X, half of them may carry Y. So if any egg is fertilized by a sperm carrying X chromosome, it is going to result in the formation of in the production of a female child. If it is fertilized by a sperm carrying Y chromosome, then it is going to give rise to a male child. Now, what we can see from here, that it is the males, not the males, I would say, it is the sperm that is going to decide, the sperm that is going to fertilize the egg, which is going to decide the sex of the child, because females have no control over it. They are producing only one type of gamete, that is the X. They are the eggs carrying the X chromosome. The males, they are producing two type of gametes. Half of them may carry X, half of them may carry Y. If the sperm carrying Y chromosome fertilizes the egg, then only a male child can come. If the sperm carrying X chromosome fertilizes the egg, then only a female child can come. But as you know, in our society, that females are generally, they are blamed that they are not going to, because in villages, you know, there is some issues with this. People, they want more of male child. So if a female is not going to give birth to a male child, then they are ostracized, they are blamed, they are ill-treated. But this is a completely wrong notion. Actually, no one is having a control over the sex of a child. No one, not even the males. It is a chance factor. But if someone has to be blamed, or I won't use the word blame, if someone is responsible, that is the sperms, which are produced by the males, not by the females. Anyway, so this is about the sex determination in human beings. But one more thing you should remember, there is always a chance of 50% of the progeny being males and 50% of the progeny being females. Now you may say that I have seen a family where 4 children are there, 3 of them are boys, 1 is girl, or maybe 3 of them are girls, 1 is boy. Why not 50-50% there? As we have just told, that there are 50% chances to be a male and 50% chances to be a female. So when we take a small sample, we cannot conclude what is the chances. Actually, the probability is 50%. But in this particular case, maybe the sperms with more Y chromosome has fertilized every time. So maybe even 4 children, 4 of them can be boys. But if you take a large sample, then you can see that 50% of the population are males and 50% of the population are females. Next, we'll be discussing a different kind of sex determination. Now we have discussed that there is male heterogamy or female heterogamy. Now we are going to decide a different kind of sex determination, that is known as haplodiploid sex determination. Do you know where it is observed? This kind of sex determination is generally observed in case of the honeybees. What happens? How it is there? Let us discuss. Let us see. Yeah, this was the bird, as I have already told. The males are having ZZ and the females are having ZW. This we have already discussed. Now, this is the sex determination in case of honeybees. Let me tell you that eggs, the honeybees, they are going to produce eggs. Fine. The egg is going to have a ploidy. In general, how many chromosomes are going to be present in case of the parents? The honeybees, they are having 32 chromosomes. 2n condition is 32. So when they divide by meiosis, then they are going to produce gametes which will have 16 chromosomes. Now these 16 chromosomes, if they are fertilized by a sperm, then they are going to give rise to a female. If they are not fertilized, then they are going to give rise to a male. Yes, if these eggs, they are fertilized by a male, then only they are going to give rise to a female or a worker. If they are going to be developed by parthenogenesis, then they are going to give rise to a male. Let me show you in the board. It will be easier for you. Yes. Let us see what happens. In case of honeybees, the females, obviously their chromosome number is 32. This is male. Yeah. In case of males, the chromosome number is 16. Why I was telling you that this is haplodiploid kind of sex determination, now you can see it is haplodiploid just because if it is diploid, it is going to be a female. If it is haploid, then it is going to be a male. So how it is taking place? Now, as because it is diploid, so when it produces gametes, then it produces gametes, the females, they produces gamete by the process of meiosis. When they produce gametes by the process of meiosis, they will have 16 chromosomes in the gametes. But males, they already have 16 chromosomes. That means they are haploid. Now they cannot reduce their number of chromosomes by undergoing meiosis. So what they are going to do? They are going to undergo mitosis. Here it is mitosis. Because of mitosis, the chromosome numbers remains the same. Okay. So this is the male gamete. These are the female gametes. Now the fate of female gametes can be two. One, this can develop into a male by a process known as parthenogenesis. That means without fertilization. If they are fertilized, then again the diploid chromosome number is restored. That means 32 chromosomes are present. This will be the female. So whenever it is diploid, then only female is there. Now, in case of females also, we know that there are some workers and queen is one. Now, how do we know that which one is going to be worker and which one is going to be queen? We can see it here. Now you can see the queen is having access to a special kind of food. We call it royal jelly actually. And if it is not having an access to that kind of food or just having a restricted food, then even after fertilized, it is obviously it will be a female, but it is going to be a worker. So this was about the sex determination. So what we saw that in sex determination, there are different mechanisms. It may be male heterogamy, it may be female heterogamy, and also another one we have just discussed, that was the haplodiplontic. Now we'll be moving forward to our next topic. The next topic is mutation. Now, what is mutation? Actually, we can define mutation as sudden, stable, and inheritable change in the DNA sequence. Generally, there is no alternation in the genes during gamete formation or during reproduction. But sometimes there may be some alterations of DNA sequences which are going to change the genotype. And if the genotype is changed, obviously the phenotype is going to be changed. In addition to recombination, mutation is also, it can also produce variation. Now, what kind of mutations we can see? There may be a loss or gain of genes. If there is a loss or gain of a segment of DNA, then it results in alteration in the chromosomes. Now, as you know, the genes are present in the chromosomes. The genes are located in the chromosomes. So, any alteration in the chromosome will result in abnormalities or aberrations. Now, in addition to this, mutation can also be result of a single base change in a single base pair. Such kind of mutation is known as point mutation. Single base pair means there are, in DNA, we have base pairs. If we alter only one of it, then it is known as point mutation. And a classic example is sickle cell anemia. We'll be discussing it later. Then deletion and insertion of base pair can also cause frame shift mutations. We won't be going into the details of the frame shift mutations or mutations because the mechanism of mutation is obviously beyond the scope of our discussion here. But frame shift mutation, little bit, it has been discussed in our next chapter that we'll be discussing, and we will be talking about it when we discuss our next chapter. Now, we will be now proceeding towards the pedigree analysis. Now, pedigree analysis. What is pedigree analysis? And why do we need to have pedigree analysis? Now, first of all, just understand pedigree analysis is the study of the family history about the inheritance and distribution of a particular trait. Why we need to study the family history? Now, we cannot actually, if we are studying human beings, we subject human beings to have we can have them possible. Is it possible to have controlled crosses in human beings? No. In case of pea, we can do. In pea plant, we can have as many number of crosses, as many number of control crosses we want. But that is not possible in case of human beings. Also, if I am going to study human generation, our lifespan, and there is an age after which human beings start reproducing. So at most, you can study only 3 to 4 generations of human beings. Then one more thing, the progeny produced by the human beings is comparatively less to the other organisms. Now, also, you can find that the chromosome number in human beings is large. Then very few traits are there which are pure. So there are a lot of issues which do not allow us to study the inheritance of traits in human beings by actual crossing or actually studying the process that has taken place. So what we do, we go for this tool, that is the pedigree analysis, in which we study the family history. In family history, we see in pedigree analysis, inheritance of a particular trait that is represented in the family tree over generations. Let's see how we do it. Now, there are some symbols that is used in the pedigree analysis. You need to understand these first. The cross one, the square one is representing a male. Then the next one, the round, you can see it is representing a female. When it is a rhombus, then it is representing an unspecified sex. But whenever an individual is affected, we actually fill it up. See, you can see that it is filled with red color here. And how do we represent mating? We represent mating by joining both the males and females by a single line. When it is mating between close relatives, then we can see that we have drawn two lines there. Now, the parents are always above the children, and the children are shown in the order of birth from left to right. That means the first one to born will be present in the left, the next one to born will be present in the right. The parents, next one, there is an example where it is shown that parents with a male child with affected with disease. Next one, 5 unaffected offsprings. There are many more symbols used. We are not going into those details. Now, we will be trying to understand how we are going to prepare a pedigree chart and how it is going to help us. Here we will show the pedigree chart that I have taken from NCERT itself. Here a pedigree chart is there that is representative A, it is representative autosomal dominant trait, and another one is representing autosomal recessive trait. Now, such kind of charts may be given to you during your examinations.
जीवन ये प्रकाशित करने राहों को आलोकित करने हम अपना दीपक स्वयं बने, हम अपना रास्ता स्वयं चुने।
अपना दीपक स्वयं बने, हम अपना रास्ता स्वयं चुने।
जीवन ये प्रकाशित करने राहों को आलोकित करने।
धन साधन समय की सीमा से विद्यालय जो मुक्त हो,
धन साधन समय की सीमा से विद्यालय जो मुक्त हो।
कभी पढ़े हम कहीं पढ़े वे विषय की लोच से युक्त हो।
कभी पढ़े हम कहीं पढ़े वे विषय की लोच से युक्त हो।
मित्रों हम उठे और जागे,
मंजिल आने की ध्वनि सुने। हम अपना दीपक स्वयं बने, हम अपना रास्ता स्वयं चुने।
जीवन ये प्रकाशित करने राहों को आलोकित करने।
राष्ट्रीय मुक्त विद्यालय का है द्वार खुला सबकी खातिर।
शिक्षा परीक्षा का अवसर एक बार ही क्यों मिलता फिर।
शिक्षा और परीक्षा का अवसर एक बार ही क्यों मिलता फिर। दुनिया में इसके केंद्र बात
कोई मन चाहा केंद्र चुने। हम अपना दीपक स्वयं बने, हम अपना रास्ता स्वयं चुने। कोई मन चाहा
We will take up the question after 5 minutes because a lot of questions have come.
No worries, no worries.
Okay, fine.
Welcome back, students. So what we were discussing about the pedigree analysis. So before I go to that one again, I would like to show you the picture first that I was showing before proceeding how to do it. Here you can see the representative pedigree analysis, and two cases they have, imaginary cases they have taken, autosomal dominant trait and another one is autosomal recessive trait. What I was telling, that you can have such kind of questions, these charts in your question paper also. Now what they are going to ask from this chart, there is nothing written. From this chart itself, you have to tell them maybe if the trait is autosomal dominant, or the trait is autosomal recessive, or the trait is sex linked. So how do we know all these things? That we should know. Actually, there are few indications from which you can understand or you can decide if this chart are of autosomal dominant or recessive or sex linked disease. I'll give you some tips. First thing is, if it is an autosomal or if it is an sex linked, how we are going to decide? Mostly in case of sex linked disorders, it is very common to see that the female carrier is going to give rise to an affected male. That means the female was not affected, but the progeny, the male progeny is affected. Why this is? Because in most of these sex-linked disorders, the defect lies in the X chromosome. We will be discussing such examples, so we can go into detail there. The defect was lying in the X chromosome. If the defect is lying in the X chromosome, we know the females are having 2 X chromosome. So if one X chromosome is okay, and if it is recessive, the defect is recessive, then the dominant X chromosome will mask it and the disease will not be expressed. So the female will just remain a carrier. But when the same female produces eggs, that defective gene will enter into one gamete, that X chromosome with defect in it. Now, when that defective gene passes on to a boy has only one X chromosome. That's why it will express itself in the boy. We will be going into details. So this is how we generally decide if it is sex chromosome linked or autosomal. Now in autosomal, obviously there will be no differentiation between males or females. Anyone can be affected. Now what if the trait is a dominant trait or the trait is a recessive trait? Here also we should understand, if it is the dominant trait, it is very rare to see a generation skip. That means in every generation, someone will be affected because the trait is dominant. Even if it is present even if it is present in heterozygous condition, it will express the disease. So we can stop this pedigree analysis here. I think a question has come, so I'd like to take the question. I think there is no questions coming, maybe. So we will proceed to the Mendelian's disorder. The next one is the genetic disorder. Basically, the DNA is the carrier of the genetic information. Mostly it is transferred as it is from parent to the offspring, but occasionally there is some alteration in DNA. If there is an alteration in DNA, that is mutation, it results into a disorder. Now, genetic disorders, that we call it as genetic disorder because it has come because of a gene. Now, genetic disorder can be grouped into two categories, Mendelian disorder and chromosomal disorder. In Mendelian disorder, the alteration or mutation is there in a single gene. And this kind of mutation, it is transferred to the offspring in the same lines as we have studied in the principles of inheritance. The patterns of inheritance of such disorder can be traced in a family tree by the pedigree analysis that we were observing. some common pedigree, common Mendelian disorders are hemophilia, cystic fibrosis, then sickle cell anemia, color blindness, phenylketonuria, thalassemia, etc. We will be discussing few of these here. From pedigree analysis, obviously, as we have discussed, we can study these kind of diseases. First, we'll be going for discussing the hemophilia. I'll tell you how. These are the disorders we are about the hemophilia. Just now, I was saying that a trait may be sex-linked. So here in case of hemophilia, this disease is sex-linked recessive. Now, an affected carrier female can transfer it to a transfer the disease to her male progeny. How we are going to see, and what happens in this one, the gene that controls the protein that is needed for clotting of blood is affected. In case the protein that is needed for clotting of blood is affected, what will happen? No clotting will take place. So what will happen? Continuous or excessive bleeding will take place. That's why this disease is also known as bleeder's disease. I'll repeat once more. Here, the gene which is responsible for production of a protein, that protein was necessary for clotting of blood is affected. What is happening? The clotting of blood is not taking place, and it will the person is going to bleed for longer time. And for human beings, for normal human beings, also there is bleeding, but after a few minutes there is a clotting taking place. But in these human beings, the clotting will take a long time. Okay. Now the possibility, you can, how it is being transferred. You can see here, the father is not having hemophilia. So it is not shaded at all. So XY, normal X and normal Y. The mother was a carrier, but she is not also having hemophilia. Why? Because she is having two X chromosomes. If two X chromosomes are there, then one is okay. Then the okay one, that means the dominant one or the normal X chromosome, will mask the expression of the defective X chromosome. When there is a cross, we can see that 50% chance is there that the sons will have hemophilia, and 50% chance is there that the daughters are going to be carrier. They are not going to suffer from hemophilia. Why? Unless other is a carrier, then the females cannot get two defective X chromosomes. I will draw it on the board so that it will be easier for you to understand. See, there may be a case this is the other defective gene, and this is the father. The father is not one with X chromosome, other one with defective X chromosome. The gametes produced in case of male is normal X chromosome and normal Y chromosome. What happens? This X chromosome, when it this egg, when it is being fertilized by this gamete, then normal X chromosome, both are normal X chromosome. When it is fertilized by this Y, then again we have normal X chromosome and normal Y chromosome. In this case, we have a abnormal X chromosome and a normal X chromosome. And in this case, we can find that an abnormal X chromosome and a Y chromosome is present. So which are males? This is male, this is male, this is female, this is what we can see, 50% of the male progeny. There were two here. So 50% of the male progeny will be suffering from the disease. But in case of females, we can see 50% will be carrier, because this another X chromosome is protecting it from the disease to be expressed in such individuals. Okay, now this kind of disease, actually this hemophilia is seen in the family pedigree of Queen Victoria. She shows a number of hemophilic descendants, because actually she was a carrier. One more kind of Mendelian disorder is color blindness. Normally, we have some cells in our eyes which are responsible for differentiating between the color, like green and red color. These cells are known as cone cells. If there is a defect in either red or green cone cells, what will happen? The offspring or the individual, they will not be able to discriminate between red or green color. Such individuals are known as colorblind individuals. Color blindness is a trait is seen more in the males. 8% of the males of normal population are colorblind, and only 0.4% is there in case of females. Now the question arises, why? Now I should tell you the reason. The reason is this is also sex-linked recessive disorder, just like hemophilia. In case of hemophilia, we have seen if it is a sex-linked recessive disorder, sex-linked disorders are present in X chromosome. If it is recessive, then females are having very less chances to get affected. They can get affected only when the male is having the male is a carrier. Suppose in this case, if it is a carrier, then suppose this X chromosome becomes affected, and this gamete will be affected. This zygote or this individual will become an affected individual. But this is very rare in case of sex-linked recessive disorders to get the females to get affected. Now, one thing I should tell. As we know, color blindness, we have seen it is sex-linked recessive disorder. Apart from this, color blindness can also be acquired. Maybe some damage to your eye or to your optic nerve can also result in color blindness, but that is beyond our scope of discussion here. Next one, we will be discussing about another Mendelian disorder, that is sickle cell anemia. This is an autosomal recessive disorder, and this defect is there when the mutation is there in chromosome number 11. What happens? Now, as it is recessive, so this can be transmitted to offspring. This disease can be there in offspring when both the parents are heterozygous, both the parents are carrier. Then only this can be, the offspring can be affected. Let us see how it happens. This is controlled by a single pair of genes, that is HBA, HBS. I'm writing here. HBA, normal one, and HBS. S, we are just writing it for denoting that it can cause sickle cell anemia. Now, there can be, how many possible alleles can be there? There can be 3 different pairs. What? It can be HBA, HBS, it can be HBA, HBA, and it can be HBS and HBS. So what happens, as I have told, it is autosomal recessive. That means here one normal is present, another one is defective. Here both are normal, here both are defective. As it is a recessive one, so in this case also we won't see sickle cell anemia in the individual. It can be a carrier. They can be a carrier. This one obviously not affected. In this case, both the genes are affected and there is no dominant gene to mask their expression. So the disease is expressed. I'll share. So what happens in sickle cell anemia? in sickle cell anemia, actually, the structure of the red blood cells, they change. So we will be, this is the sickle cell anemia, sickle cell already shown, but let me tell you how it is being passed or how it is being caused first. Now, what happens? This is caused by substitution of glutamic acid by valine.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, one question is coming from one learner.
Yes.
She is asking, she is Priya from UP. She is asking if in parthenogenesis female develop female, parthenogenesis female develop female, then why in honeybee female give rise to male?
In parthenogenesis,
female develop female. Then why in honeybee female give rise to male?
Okay, no problem, no problem. Okay, so I should stop the screen sharing so that I can explain it. Your question is that if the question that came that how a female is giving rise to a male in case of honeybee by parthenogenesis. Fine, no problem. The female was having 32 chromosomes and the male is supposed to have 16. Why? The sex determination here is haplodiplontic. So what we know, if there is haploid, the chromosome, the individual is haploid, it is going to be a male. If the chromosome number in the individual is diploid, if it is a diploid, then it is going to be a female. So what happens in case of honeybee? The females, they are going to produce gametes by a process meiosis. When meiosis takes place, obviously the chromosome number will be reduced to half. And what in case of males? They are doing this by mitosis. That means the chromosome number is remaining the same. Now this one, if it is not fertilized, what is going to happen? If it is not fertilized, then even if it develops into an individual by parthenogenesis, obviously parthenogenesis is the development into the individual without fertilization. So no fertilization has taken place. It has developed into an individual. So this individual is obviously having haploid number of chromosome. So there is no way it can be a female. It has to be a male only. But if this gamete is being fertilized by a sperm from a male, then only it can be a female. Now, as you have asked, I can tell you one more thing here. There is an interesting thing about honeybees. The males, they do not have father and they cannot have sons, but they have a grandfather and they can have sons. It is written there. Now you will be confused. How? Now tell me how males are produced. The males are produced by the process of parthenogenesis from a female. So this male is being produced from a female. Is any male involved in production of the male? No. See, he directly developed from his mother. So there is no father for this male. So it cannot have a father. But it has a grandfather. Why grandfather? Because this female has developed by fertilization of a male gamete and a female gamete. The male gamete came from a male. So she obviously came from a male father, and the female obviously mother, she gave 16 chromosomes. So this person is supposed to be its grandfather. Okay. Now, how, if they cannot have sons, then how can they have grandsons? Because they can again these males can only fertilize a female gamete. And if they fertilize a female gamete, then obviously they will have only daughter. If they don't fertilize, sorry, this male gamete, if they don't fertilize, nothing is going to happen. If they fertilize, they are changing into a female. So they can have daughters. And these daughters can again produce gametes which can develop by parthenogenesis to produce a son. So they can have grandsons. So I hope I have cleared your doubt. So we will be.
Yes, one question is coming. Sir, your voice.
Yes, now it's clear.
Yes, one more question is coming, sir.
Yes, please.
What is Petridophyta?
What is?
Petridophyta.
Petridophyta. Can they tell the spelling actually?
Petridophyta.
Petridophyta. Oh, okay. Got it. See, I think
Sir,
actually the question is they are talking about pteridophytes. It's like you call nature as nature. So I think it's pteridophytes. Pteridophytes is a kind of vascular plant. Okay, Pteridophyta is a group of plants. When you go for classification, actually there was a class for the secondary level today itself. They were discussing about the classification of plants. So I won't go into more into detail of that because that is not related to this topic. But you can obviously let me know if you want to know more about it after I finish this session. So I'll be going for sharing the screen again. Oh, we are already sharing. Yes. So I was discussing about the sickle cell anemia, how it was happening. What happens here in case of sickle cell anemia? There is a substitution of glutamic acid by valine at the 6th position of the beta globulin chain. You can see that the 6th position, there is a substitution of glutamic acid. Generally, it is supposed to be the 6th position. It is supposed to be glutamic acid in the polypeptide chain. But here it has been substituted by the valine. So when it is substituted, it has been caused by substitution of a single base at the 6th position. What was there? The GAG was changed into GUG. You can see how a single base is being changed. G is there in the beginning. At the end, G is there. The middle one, A, is changed into U. So GAG has changed into GUG, which has resulted in the change in the amino acid. The glutamic acid was supposed to be formed there. Now it has formed valine. So what happens? The mutant hemoglobin, it undergoes polymerization under low oxygen tension and become elongated and sickle-like structure. You can see it here. See, this kind of structure can be there. So in this case, it is not able to carry enough amount of oxygen and it is also resulting in blockages. So
Sir,
next we'll be proceeding towards our next.
Sir, one question is coming, sir.
Yes, please.
And this is an interesting question, sir. If the parents are affected with COVID-19,
Yes.
okay, sir.
Yes.
So, if the parents are affected with COVID-19, can COVID-19 be transmitted to the born child?
Very, very, very good question. Just a minute.
Yes,
Let me stop the screen sharing. I'm coming.
And he is Mr. Anurag from Bihar, sir.
Okay. So the question was, if the parent is affected by COVID-19, can the offspring
Born
be
child.
born child? Okay, fine. The question is the virus. Now, I also don't know how this virus behaves, but let me tell you, actually it is being caused by a virus. Now, if that virus, I am telling about a hypothetical condition. If that virus is able to cross into the through the plasma, and it can enter the developing zygote, or when the embryo development takes place. Obviously, it can infect. We don't know if it can do that. Another thing, from birth, it may not have, but after birth, it may have, because it is staying in close contact with with his or her mother. So this is not it is not transferred genetically, but if it is transferred through the plasma, or it is present in our blood in some case, we don't know actually how it is behaving. If there is a possibility that that can transfer to the plasma, obviously the progeny can get affected. Not plasma, what to say, placenta. If it can be transferred to the placenta, then only the progeny can be affected. If not, I don't think there is a chance of the progeny to be COVID positive by birth. After birth, again, the case is different. These are all acquired ones, and we know diseases are also of two types. Some we can inherit also some kind of disease, and some kind of disease we acquire in our lifetime. Generally, as on now, I can see that this kind of disease, or the COVID-19, is an acquired one.
Sir, one more question is there, sir. Yeah, one more
Yes.
question is there, sir. Is it possible for a non-hemophilic couple to bear a hemophilic child?
A non-hemophilic couple to bear a hemophilic child. Now, this thing is, hemophilic child can only come when the, what to say, the, okay, let me show you. Yes, it is possible. How it is possible, I am showing you. This is a non-hemophilic female. This is a hemophilic male. Now, the progeny here, this X chromosome can be given to a female child only. If this is carrier, the male, the female, the mother is a carrier and the father is hemophilic, then obviously we already know that there is a chance that the female can be hemophilic. But your question was that the parents are non-hemophilic. That means father cannot be hemophilic, but mother can be a carrier. She is not hemophilic, but she is carrier. So what will happen in this condition? No hemophilia, fine. In this condition, the female is a carrier, but no hemophilia. But what happens if this X chromosome, this gamete carrying the defective X chromosome is crossing with this one? Then this is the male. The male is not having two X chromosomes. The male is having one X chromosome and one Y chromosome. So if the X chromosome is affected, obviously they become hemophilic. So non-hemophilic couple, they have given rise to a hemophilic child. But in this case, the hemophilic child will only be a male. A non-hemophilic couple is not going to give rise to a hemophilic female. They can give rise to a carrier female, of course.
Sir, one more
Yes.
question is there, sir.
Yes, please.
What is gene mapping?
Oh, nice. Very good. Actually, I thought that this thing was discovered, discussed in our last session. So gene mapping, what happens? I'll discuss a little bit about gene mapping. To tell about gene mapping, I should tell you about some linkage and recombination. See, now, what is linkage and what is recombination? That we need to understand first. In some cases, we can see that the parents are producing children and the progeny is showing a lot of new characters. They are not having the similar characters as their parents. So how these new characters have come? They have come by the process of recombination. But there were some experiments conducted by the Morgan. When they were conducting experiments, they found in case of some characters, in case of Drosophila, they found those characters, they are not segregating from each other. Suppose this is a chromosome. This is a chromosome. In this chromosome, one gene is present here. Another gene is present here. So what, I am not going into the detail, I'm just explaining you. So if these two genes are very close to each other, so when the segregation takes place or the recombination by the crossing over takes place, there is very less chances that these two genes will be separated. So if they are not separated, no new recombination is observed or the recombination rate is very less. We find mostly the parental combinations. But if the genes are situated far apart, I'm just drawing a linear one. If a gene is present here, gene A, another gene is present here, gene B, suppose, in the chromosome. Now, if there is distance is large, in that case, there is a possibility that during recombination or crossing over, these may get separated. They can enter into different gametes. But if they are very close to each other, then the possibility of their separation becomes very less. Now, you may ask, I was asking about gene mapping, why this was being told to me. Now, the concept of gene mapping came from here only. What they did, they were looking for the new recombinations. When they found, they were taking two characters. When they found that the new recombinations are present, they told that the genes will be present at a particular distance. They are present far. When they found there was no recombination or less recombination, most of the, we have parental combination, then they will say they are close. So in this way, they can decide what is the location of the gene actually. So that deciding the location of the gene is nothing but the gene mapping. Now, the unit of, there is also a unit of distance in gene mapping that is known as centimorgan. And this was first done by the Alfred Stewart. What he used the frequency of recombination between gene pairs on the same chromosome. If the frequency of recombination is more, they are far. If the frequency of recombination is less, they are close. That's how he mapped the genes, or he has decided about the location of genes on the chromosome. Any more questions, sir? Any more questions, sir? Hello?
Sir, yes, sir. The question is, one question has come. In which all the organism this parthenogenesis takes place?
Parthenogenesis can take place in many organisms. It not only in honeybees, even in case of some plants, we can see parthenogenesis. Parthenogenesis is it is seen widely in animal kingdom. Any more questions, sir?
Sir, yeah. One learner again asking the question related with the COVID-19. The question is now,
yes.
If the mother is a COVID-19 patient, then can child have antibodies of the virus?
Fine. I am caught here. Now the antibodies of the virus. Again, we should know that if the antibody can be produced by an individual, because this is not present from birth, this antibody will be produced when the pathogen infects. In response to the antigen, antibody is produced. Here the pathogen, the COVID-19 virus, is the antigen. Now, in response to the infection of this antigen, the antibody is going to be produced. But again, we know, my question was that if an antibody can be transferred from the mother to the baby through the placenta, then obviously from the beginning only they will have some antibodies. Yes, sir. Next.
Sir, yeah. one more question is there. Both hemophilia and thalassemia are blood related disorders in humans. What is the difference between the two?
Yes, fine.
Hemophilia
Actually,
and thalassemia.
Yeah, I got it, sir.
Yeah.
Very nice. Actually, it's an intelligent question because in both the cases, we can find that there is the hemoglobin production is being, what to say, the hemoglobin production is being affected. But what is the difference then? Actually, one is quantitative and another one is qualitative. Why? In case of the sickle cell anemia, we found the little bit change was there in the hemoglobin molecule. So it was a qualitative one. But in case of thalassemia, I have not discussed actually, but still I can say, in case of thalassemia, what happens? That is reduced production of hemoglobin. And it can be caused, I can finish it now. It can be caused by, it can be of two different types. There is one alpha chain and one beta chain in hemoglobin. I'll show you by screen sharing. Just wait. See, this is here. We can find in case of thalassemia. What we find in case of thalassemia, that there is an alpha chain and one beta chain. Now, depending on which chain is being affected, it is decided that it will be alpha thalassemia or beta thalassemia. Now, your question was how it is differing. Thalassemia, as I have told, it is a quantitative problem. And sickle cell anemia is a qualitative problem. Both has difference in this regard only. In quantitative problem, another one is a qualitative problem. Any more questions?
Yes, sir. More questions are coming. Sir,
Yes,
what is polygenic inheritance?
Yeah, polygenic inheritance. Polygenic inheritance, I think I have discussed in the very beginning today itself, that when a character is being controlled by 3 or more genes, then it is known as polygenic inheritance. In case of height or in case of skin color, as I was telling, suppose your skin color, do we have only 2 types of skin color? That light and dark? We have a range, right? So here we see that skin color was being controlled by 3 different genes we have seen. What about height? You will be surprised to know that scientists, they were trying to understand that how many genes are involved in controlling our height. You will be surprised to know that it is approximately 700 genes that are contributing towards our height. Then you will say, what is the contribution of each gene? In case of polygenic inheritance, every gene has a contribution, and the contribution is additive. So actually, all these 700 genes, they contribute 1 millimeter or even less than 1 millimeter of your height. So once again, in polygenic inheritance, a single character or a single trait is controlled by more than 1 genes. Yes, sir, please.
Yes, sir. Sir, due to time constraint, okay, so many questions are coming, but we will take on this last question.
Yes.
Why do normal blood cells become elongated, sickle-shaped structure in a person suffering from sickle cell anemia?
Yes, very good. What I was telling, that in case of sickle cell anemia, what happened? We already have seen that there is a change. What is the change? That the glutamic acid is now replaced by valine. So when such type of mutant hemoglobin is there, then these mutant hemoglobin molecule, they undergo polymerization. वो change होते हैं. कब change होते हैं? When there is low oxygen tension. जब oxygen कम होता है, then they undergo polymerization and they become elongated and sickle-like structure is seen. Normally it is a biconcave structure, but in this condition, due to polymerization of the mutant hemoglobin, it is changing into a sickle-like structure. Yes, sir? Should
Sir,
we continue?
Yeah, we have to end up also, sir. So just summarize, sir.
Okay, fine. So today we were discussing about polygenic inheritance, Then we have discussed about pleiotropy. Little bit we have talked about our mutation, then pedigree analysis, sex determination. And sex determination also we have seen there are different kinds. And then we were discussing actually genetic disorders, and still chromosomal disorders was left. But because of time constraint, we may be discussing about it in our next session. So thank you all of you for listening to me, and thanks for joining. Thank a lot to NIOS for giving me this opportunity, and I would suggest all the students to stay tuned to this channel every day from 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. so that you can enjoy the live classes and you can also interact and you can also get your doubts cleared. Thank you. Have a nice day.
थैंक यू लर्नर्स। विद्यार्थियों, आशा करते हैं कि आज के सारे सेशंस काफ़ी रोचक रहे, सारे आपके प्रश्नों के उत्तर मिल गए होंगे, और इस आशा के साथ कि हम आपसे फिर कल मिलेंगे 1 बजे दूसरे क्लास में, लाइव क्लास में। तब तक के लिए धन्यवाद।